There's a chilling saying among homicide investigators: the most dangerous cliffs aren't made of rock, they're made of decisions, because a person doesn't fall to their death the moment their body leaves the edge. Sometimes they start falling long before they ever reach it, long before the scream, long before the impact, long before anyone realizes they're standing beside the wrong person. On the evening of July 7th, 2013, 25-year-old Cody Johnson had no reason to believe he was living the final hours of his life. The newlywed from Kalispell, Montana, had everything he thought he ever wanted: a wife he adored, a future he could already picture, a family he hoped to build. Just 8 days earlier, he had stood before friends and relatives and promised forever. 8 days. That's all his marriage would last. 8 days between "I do" and a body lying broken at the bottom of a mountain ravine. And what makes this story so disturbing isn't just the murder. It's how ordinary everything looked before it happened. Because evil rarely announces its arrival. It hides inside normal conversations, normal smiles, normal photographs, until suddenly the picture develops into something horrifying. The story began years earlier inside a small church community in Montana. Jordan Graham was quiet, painfully quiet. Friends described her as shy, withdrawn, someone who rarely volunteered her emotions. Conversations with her often ended in one-word answers. She wasn't the center of attention. She preferred the edges of the room, the background, the shadows. Cody Johnson was the opposite: outgoing, friendly, talkative, the kind of person who could start a conversation with anyone, the kind of person who made people laugh, the kind of person who filled silence effortlessly. On paper, they seemed like an unlikely match, but attraction doesn't always follow logic. Sometimes opposites attract, and sometimes opposites collide. The two officially met in 2011. For Cody, the relationship quickly became serious. Friends would later say he was completely devoted to Jordan, the kind of devotion that can blind people to warning signs. There's an old proverb: when love puts on a blindfold, red flags just look like ordinary flags. Cody was in love, deeply in love. While others questioned the relationship, he saw a future. While others noticed distance, he saw mystery. While others worried, he saw possibility. By December 2012, he was ready to propose. He had saved money from his paychecks, picked out a ring, planned a future, and Jordan said yes. From the outside, it looked like a happy ending was beginning. In reality, something else was already taking shape, something nobody could see. As wedding preparations moved forward, Jordan appeared excited. She talked about surprises for Cody. She planned details. She even commissioned a custom wedding song. Friends saw smiles. Family saw anticipation. But appearances can be deceptive. Sometimes a smile is a celebration. Sometimes it's camouflage. June 29, 2013. The wedding day arrived. Family gathered. Friends watched. The ceremony unfolded beneath the Montana sky. Cody looked ecstatic. Witnesses later remembered how happy he seemed, how proud, how hopeful. To him, this was the beginning of the best chapter of his life. To Jordan, no one truly knew what was happening inside her head, because almost immediately after the wedding, cracks began appearing. Tiny cracks, the kind people dismiss, the kind that later become impossible to ignore. The very next day, Jordan sent alarming messages to a close friend, messages filled with panic, regret, fear. She described having a meltdown. She questioned whether marrying Cody had been the right decision. At first, her friend wasn't overly concerned. Post-wedding anxiety happens. Cold feet happen. Major life changes create stress. But the messages kept coming, and they kept getting darker. Jordan admitted she couldn't stop crying. She said she wasn't happy. She said she felt trapped. She said she wished someone had stopped the wedding. One message was particularly haunting: "I haven't stopped crying since I got married." Think about that. Not 6 months later, not after years of conflict. 1 day later, the honeymoon phase never arrived. Because for Jordan Graham, the nightmare had apparently begun before the marriage was even a week old. Friends encouraged her to talk to Cody, to be honest, to communicate. Simple advice, reasonable advice, the kind that saves relationships every day. But Jordan seemed incapable of saying what she truly felt. And every day the pressure inside her appeared to grow. like steam trapped inside a sealed container. Meanwhile, Cody remained optimistic. Friends said he seemed thrilled, excited, proud to be married, completely unaware that his wife was privately unraveling. There's a cruel truth about some tragedies. One person thinks they're building a future, the other is already searching for an exit. As July progressed, Jordan's messages became increasingly desperate. She admitted she felt stuck, unable to express herself, unable to tell Cody the truth, unable to face the consequences. Then came July 7th, the 8th day of the marriage, the final day of Cody Johnson's life. That morning seemed normal. The couple attended church. Friends saw them together. Nothing appeared unusual, nothing appeared dangerous. But later, witnesses would remember something chilling. Cody kept mentioning that Jordan had planned a surprise for him. A surprise, such an innocent word. Most surprises bring joy. Some bring flowers, some bring gifts, some bring memories, and some lead you to the edge of a cliff. Throughout the day, Jordan continued texting her friend, still distressed, still unhappy, still struggling. Her friend again urged her to speak honestly with her husband. Jordan replied that she planned to talk to him that night. Then she sent a message investigators would never forget. But dead serious, if you don't hear from me, something happened. At the time, it sounded strange. After what happened next, it sounded terrifying. That evening after church, members of their congregation gathered at local restaurants. Some went to Wendy's, others went to Dairy Queen. Cody and Jordan chose Dairy Queen. Witnesses later described seeing them together, talking, laughing, appearing normal. One woman even joked with Cody as he played around with a pair of novelty glasses. Nothing seemed wrong. Nothing seemed unusual. Nobody suspected they were witnessing the final public sighting of a man who would be dead within hours. Shortly after leaving, the couple returned home. And finally, Jordan told Cody how she felt. The conversation exploded into an argument. Words became emotions. Emotions became tension. Tension became something neither of them could control. Hoping to resolve things, they got into Cody's Audi and started driving. Away from town, away from people, away from witnesses, toward Glacier National Park. At 9:17 p.m., security cameras captured their vehicle entering the park. It would become one of the most important pieces of evidence in the entire case, because cameras don't care about lies. Cameras don't care about excuses. Cameras simply remember. The sun had already disappeared beyond the mountains. Darkness was settling across the landscape. The winding roads of Glacier stretched ahead like black ribbons cutting through wilderness. Towering cliffs loomed above. Deep ravines vanished into shadow below. Beautiful, silent, unforgiving, there's an old mountain saying, "The wilderness never judges you. It simply remembers where you fell." Eventually, the couple arrived at a location known as the Loop, a scenic overlook, a popular stopping point. And as investigators would later discover, the last place Cody Johnson would ever stand. They parked, left their phones behind, and began walking into the darkness. Just the two of them, no witnesses, no cameras, no one to hear what was said. The argument continued as they moved along the trail. Jordan told Cody she wasn't happy, that she hated how he treated her, that something inside the marriage felt wrong. The further they walked, the more isolated they became. Then they left the trail entirely, stepping into rough terrain scarred by an old wildfire. The mountain was quiet, no traffic, no voices, only darkness and the sound of two newlyweds carrying the weight of a collapsing marriage. Somewhere near the edge of a steep ravine, the argument reached its breaking point. According to Jordan's later account, Cody grabbed her arm. She pulled away. The confrontation intensified, emotions boiled over, and in a single moment, a moment that lasted only seconds, a marriage ended, a future disappeared. And a man standing near the edge of a mountain suddenly found himself falling into the darkness below. The silence that followed would echo for years. The fall lasted only a few seconds, but for Cody Johnson, those seconds were catastrophic. Nearly 200 feet below, his body slammed into jagged rock before crashing into a pool of water at the bottom of the ravine. The force shattered bones, crushed his eye socket, fractured his skull, tore open his heart. Later, medical examiners would compare the injuries to those suffered in devastating high-speed car crashes. The mountain had delivered its verdict instantly. There would be no rescue. No second chance. No final goodbye, only silence. And above that silence stood the last person who had seen him alive, Jordan Graham. Imagine that moment. The darkness, the empty cliff edge, the realization that the man who had promised to spend his life with you was now lying dead hundreds of feet below. Most people would panic, scream, call for help, run for assistance. Jordan did none of those things. Instead, she turned around, walked back toward the trail, returned to the Audi, started the engine, and drove away. Alone. There is a disturbing quote often repeated by criminal profilers. Panic leaves footprints, calculation erases them. What happened next would become one of the most chilling parts of the entire case. As Jordan drove back toward town, cellular service returned, and almost immediately she began sending text messages, not to emergency services, not to park rangers, not to anyone who could save Cody. Instead, she messaged friends. One text read, "I don't even know what to do right now." Another conversation seemed strangely casual, almost disconnected from reality. As one life lay destroyed at the bottom of a mountain, Jordan exchanged messages about dancing, jokes, everyday conversation, normal life. It was as though two completely different realities were unfolding at the same time, one beneath the cliff, one above it. Shortly after 11 p.m., she called her younger brother. She claimed she and Cody had argued. She said he had left. She wanted company because she didn't want to be alone. But even then, the story was already beginning to change. And changing stories are often the first warning sign detectives learn to watch, because truth rarely needs revisions. Lies almost always do. By the following morning, Cody Johnson failed to show up for work. That immediately raised alarms. Friends described him as dependable, responsible, the type of person who never simply disappeared. His best friend and supervisor, Cameron Fredrickson, tried calling. No answer. Text messages went unanswered. Hours passed, then more hours, still nothing. The concern quickly turned into fear. Meanwhile, Jordan began offering explanations. She claimed Cody had gone off with friends. Then she suggested mysterious individuals had picked him up. Then another version emerged involving a dark vehicle with out-of-state license plates. Every version felt incomplete. Every version created more questions, and with every new explanation, suspicion quietly grew. Fredrickson wasn't convinced. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. There's an old investigator's saying, "When a story changes, follow the changes. They usually lead to the truth." The inconsistencies kept piling up. Friends began noticing strange behavior. Jordan didn't appear focused on finding her missing husband. Witnesses described her laughing, texting, giggling during searches. One friend later said she seemed more interested in her phone than locating Cody. Now, behavior alone doesn't prove guilt. People process trauma differently. Shock affects everyone in unique ways, but combined with everything else. The picture was becoming increasingly troubling. Then came the email, the mysterious email, the message that would ultimately help unravel the entire deception. On July 10th, Jordan arrived at police headquarters carrying a bizarre message allegedly sent by a stranger named Tony. According to the email, Cody was dead. The anonymous writer claimed Cody had gone on a joyride with friends and accidentally fallen somewhere in the wilderness. The email urged everyone to stop searching, stop asking questions, stop investigating, case closed, or at least that's what someone wanted authorities to believe. Detectives immediately sensed something was off. The email felt artificial, manufactured, like a bad script written by someone trying too hard. One investigator even described it as sketchy. And here's the thing about fabricated stories. Technology is a terrible accomplice, because computers remember things people wish they could forget. Investigators traced the email. The results were devastating. The account had been created from a computer linked directly to Jordan Graham's family home, not by a mysterious stranger, not by an unknown witness, not by Tony. The phantom informant didn't exist. The ghost had a creator, and that creator appeared to be Jordan. At that point, investigators weren't merely suspicious. They were hunting. and the walls were beginning to close in. Yet perhaps the most disturbing moment was still ahead. A search group returned to Glacier National Park. Jordan joined them. They stopped near a location known as the Loop, the same place where Cody had vanished, the same place where Jordan had last seen him alive. Witnesses watched as she became unusually focused on one particular area, one specific overlook, one exact location. When asked why, she gave a simple answer: "I just have a feeling." A feeling, not evidence, not a clue, a feeling. Then she moved closer to the edge, looked down, and suddenly announced she'd found something. 200 feet below lay Cody Johnson's body. Think about that. Out of an enormous wilderness area, miles of mountains, countless trails, endless terrain, and somehow Jordan walked directly to the precise location. The location nobody else knew about. The location where her husband's body had been hidden by geography and darkness. For investigators, it wasn't just suspicious. It was devastating, because guilty knowledge is difficult to hide, and sometimes people accidentally reveal what they know. One ranger later admitted he immediately found her behavior alarming. Another witness recalled how calm she appeared. Too calm, far too calm, even after the discovery, especially after the discovery. There is a chilling proverb: the liar's greatest enemy is not the detective, it's the truth they already know. As investigators dug deeper, more disturbing details emerged. A detective walking near Jordan's home noticed something sitting in a trash can: wedding memorabilia, love letters, Valentine's gifts, keepsakes, even pieces of a wedding dress, thrown away just days after the ceremony. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. The marriage had lasted 8 days, yet it appeared someone had already begun erasing every trace of it. Meanwhile, the FBI joined the investigation. And unlike emotions, forensic evidence doesn't care about appearances. Security cameras at Glacier National Park revealed exactly what investigators needed. Video footage showed Jordan and Cody entering the park together on the night he disappeared. One vehicle, 2 occupants, no mysterious friends, no dark car, no Washington license plates, just Jordan and Cody. The lies were collapsing, one by one, like dominoes. Eventually, investigators brought Jordan in for another interview. This time, federal agents confronted her directly. The atmosphere was different. The questions were sharper, the evidence stronger, the room smaller, the options fewer. And then came the moment everything changed. An investigator revealed the security image. The photograph showing Jordan and Cody entering Glacier together. The evidence she couldn't explain away. The evidence she couldn't rewrite. The evidence she couldn't delete. Suddenly, the fantasy ended. Reality had arrived. Cornered by facts, Jordan finally admitted she had pushed Cody. Her explanation was simple. They had argued. He grabbed her arm, she pushed him away, and he fell. But even then, questions lingered. Questions that still divide people today. Was it rage, fear, impulse, intent? Only one person truly knows, and that person has spent years behind prison walls. The case moved toward trial. Witness after witness took the stand. Friends described Cody's devotion. Family members spoke through tears. Text messages were read aloud. The jury heard about the lies, the fake email, the discovery of the body, the contradictory stories. And perhaps most heartbreaking of all, they heard from Cody's mother. She remembered her son speaking about starting a family, about becoming a father, about the future he believed was waiting for him, a future that ended at the bottom of a cliff. Then came one final shock, just before closing arguments, just before the jury prepared to deliberate. Jordan Graham changed her plea: guilty, second-degree murder. The courtroom froze. The trial stopped. And for the first time publicly, she admitted responsibility. Judge Donald Mull asked her to explain what happened that night. The courtroom sat in complete silence. No one moved. No one spoke. Only Jordan's voice filled the room. And somewhere inside that silence sat a terrible reality. A young man who entered marriage believing he had found forever. A family forever changed. A life measured not in decades, but in 8 days. Jordan Graham was ultimately sentenced to 30 years in federal prison. The appeal failed. The conviction remained. And Cody Johnson never came home. But perhaps the most haunting aspect of this case isn't the cliff. It isn't the fall. It isn't even the lies. It's the timeline. 8 days. 8 days from wedding vows to homicide. 8 days from celebration to funeral preparations. 8 days from till death do us part to death actually doing its part. There is an old saying, some storms arrive with thunder. The most dangerous ones arrive smiling. For everyone who knew Cody, the tragedy left scars that never fully healed. Friends remembered his optimism, his loyalty, his excitement about the future. The life he planned to build simply vanished into the darkness of one summer night. And Jordan, she became one of the most infamous newlywed killers in modern American true crime history. A woman who spent years dreaming about marriage, only to destroy it before the wedding flowers had even wilted. In the end, Glacier National Park kept its secrets for only a few days. The mountains watched, the cliffs remembered, and eventually the truth climbed back out of the ravine. Because that's the thing about truth. You can bury it beneath lies. You can hide it beneath stories. You can throw it into darkness. But truth is patient. And unlike people, it never falls. It waits until the world is finally ready to see it. And somewhere high above that Montana ravine, where the wind still moves across the cliffs and the shadows still stretch across the loop, a haunting lesson remains. The stranger in the dark can be frightening. The edge of a cliff can be frightening. But sometimes the most dangerous thing in your life is the person standing beside you when you think you're safest. Because monsters don't always hide beneath the bed. Sometimes they stand beside you at the altar,